Welcome back to one of the last few special episodes as a part of these DM clinics. Jen and I were talking about my when I originally started to put this all together. I knew that we were leaving out a massive conversation as it relates to all the work that we do, and that's in legacy giving. We do a lot of presentations and a lot of training and a lot of work with our clients in legacy giving because if you're not doing it and you didn't start 5 years ago, you better be starting now. Like it's so important. And so I really wanted to do one more special clinic with my wonderful business partner, Jen Love, who is one of the best storytellers in the world, hands down. I don't want anyone coming at me. This is the truth. And I wanted to get Jen to tell us some stories about some of the work that she's doing in her space with our clients, so you can learn and listen and hopefully be moved to maybe finally get around to getting your legacy program really going. So Jen, thank you for just dropping everything and doing this with me right now. I appreciate that. Thank you.
My pleasure, Bud. And you know me, I'm always happy to talk about legacy giving because not only is it a growing and crucial part of most of our fundraising programs, but it's also amazing and enriching and inspiring storytelling from start to finish. And I love legacy fundraising because the stories that it allows me to tell and be part of make me like my job more. I like fundraising more when I can talk to legacy donors because they're the most beautiful, generous, thoughtful humans on earth who, love your charity enough that they want to take care of it forever. So how can we not lean into those conversations and be eager and curious and enthusiastic to talk to people who care enough about our causes to leave us in their will? So fired up.
Cool. Well, I'm glad you're fired up. There's a couple things I know you might want to touch on. I know you sort of talk about the three acts of legacy giving and how that relates to the organization. I also know that, again, I'm constantly jealous of you because you get to hear these amazing stories firsthand because you talk to donors who have done these amazing things where I usually just get them secondhand through you. So I'll leave it to you to decide where you'd like to start this conversation, but take it away.
So I think that, the big chunk of, and you did talk about the three acts, which I think is a good place to start because the way to think structurally about legacy giving from no matter where you are as an organization is that really there are three acts to a legacy giving strategy. The first act is kind of making sure that when somebody reaches out and says, yes, I'm interested, I'd like more information, please tell me more about this, you have something to send them and you have a little bit of a plan. You have a thoughtful and appropriate document to share. You have some ways to track and acknowledge within your systems or on your spreadsheets or on your abacus that this conversation is ongoing. And so that's the first bit you need. And then the second act of legacy giving is for people who are kind of in that somewhere along that journey. They may have asked for some information. They may have ticked a box. They may have RSVP'd to an event of some kind. So how are you communicating with them? What kind of stories are you sharing with them? How are you cultivating that, inquirer stage of legacy donors so that they kind of, decide to get to the third act of legacy giving, which is confirming that they've left a gift in your will. And now you're in a conversation with them about the stories about what's possible, how you want to be recognizing and thanking their gift, etc. So that's the kind of three acts structurally that as a fundraiser you need to be aware of and planning for within any legacy giving program. But the through line, obviously, is the donor. So what we do as a part of our work is really talk about that legacy lifeline. In major gifts, people talk about pipelines. In legacy giving, we like to talk about lifelines. But it means the same thing. How are you moving people through this journey from, I love this charity and I've been supporting it for a while, to I'm going to leave a gift to you in my will? And the answer to that is stories. So what we like to talk about and what I do with clients and the workshop that I've done most recently is called the head and the heart of legacy giving. And it's really about combining those two things. What are we going to do to attract and find new legacy donors? What stories do we tell there? What kind of an investment am I making there? How am I nurturing these stories? And then how am I cultivating these relationships over time, right? Like these are long relationships that we have with donors.
Hopefully.
Blessed that we are.
Yes.
So as you think about every step in this kind of donor lifeline, legacy donor lifeline, keeping in mind the three acts, one of the ways that we first start to find, how do we find legacy donors? What's the first thing we can do to get our legacy program up and running? We have some materials ready so that if somebody says, hey, I'd like more info, I know what I'm going to do. Where do you find legacy donors? And the answer to that is usually in some kind of lead generation, active lead generation. You will have people coming to you sort of proactive or reactively. But when you get into lead generation, one of the great things to do is surveys. And surveys benefit charities no matter what. You'll learn a ton by doing a survey to your best donors. But if you also add in and layer in specific information about legacies, then you can get a ton of really valuable information about where people are in their legacy journey. And then again, share and send different information and different stories with them. So when we do these legacy giving surveys, which is a huge chunk of the work that we do in lead generation, you get people sending you back little stories about them. And we know that from, what we see in the direct response program. People are eager to share the story about themselves. So if you ask donors in a survey, when did you first realize you cared about our cause? Why do you have such a love for camp and camping? You'll get people telling you these amazing things. And as you remember, when we did this recently with one of our clients, did a survey, and they shared with us exactly that, some of the things that came back in that tell us more box. And there were things like, my family had been camping for 67 years on the same lake where your organization's camp is. I was a brownie leader for 40 years. Like, these are people telling you the stories of themselves. And then you, as the fundraiser, get to be the person that just follows up with them and is curious about them. Tell me more about that. Oh, I'm eager to know more about why you care so much about this. When did you know that nature was such a big part of your life? These are amazing conversations for you to have and for these donors to really feel seen in. So that, like, everything around lead generation, even for legacies, you already start with stories. Like, you're starting with the stories of the donors, and it's amazing to see and amazing to be part of. So then once you have some people that are kind of in this legacy lifeline, you have some donors who are raising their hands, asking for more information about legacies, then you start to sprinkle in the program what we call legacy seeds or legacy glitter, which is that throughout your annual giving program on your website, in your newsletters, you have articles and stories about legacies and about legacy giving. And really, there's two kinds of stories you can tell. You can tell stories of impact, and every charity will have this if you have any kind of legacy program. Someone has died, and you did something great with their gift. If you know them or know their family and can talk to them about their motivations, that's even better. But even if you just know the story of impact, that's still a great legacy story. And then you can tell it in terms of, here's this person, when they died, we were able to use their gift to make this amazing thing happen. And sometimes that can be like, as you'll remember with the hospital we were working with not that long ago, they had a legacy donor that pushed their campaign like over the top. So they were able to build the dream kind of sunroom for this oncology ward that was outside, and they weren't sure they were going to be able to include it in the master plan for the hospital until this legacy gift came in and was realized. So the story of that sunroom is kind of the story of that legacy donor. And as a charity, you can tell that story without having to find any more information out about that donor. That's still a powerful story where someone can read it and say, wow, wouldn't that be amazing? And then the other types of legacy stories are stories of living donors who will tell you why they've left a gift in their will. And these are the conversations that I'm talking about that make you realize how lucky we are and how amazing we see our charities through the eyes of our donors in these new ways. And it's so invigorating. So one of the stories I wanted to tell in this part was not that long ago, we sent out a newsletter with a legacy story in it. And the story was about, so this charity is the same camp charity I was talking about before. And they tend to skew to a much younger audience. They're a relatively new charity. They really have only had an individual giving program for the last 10 years, because before that, they were only ever doing events and sort of on-site stuff. Anyways, so they skew towards younger donors. And one of the things that they realized is that most of their legacy donors are quite young, are people in their 40s and 50s. And so they were eager to find more stories about younger donors, because we tend to think about legacy storytelling as older people. So it was important to them that they found younger donors to feature. And sure enough, they found a young man named Norman who, even though he's only in his 40s, he's been a camp volunteer for 17 years. So for 17 years, he's been going to this camp for kids with cancer and other serious illness. And, it's a huge commitment of time and energy, devoting a week of his summer every year. But he talks about how, in the article that we shared, he talks about how camp has always been a part of his whole life story, and that he has a personal goal. He has his own little camp bingo card. And over the years, he wants to fill it out completely. I volunteered, I served on the board, I ran in the marathon event, I did this part of the excursion, I took the kids on a camping trip. He wants to completely fill out his bingo card. And one of the things on his bingo card was leaving a gift in his will. So it was an amazing conversation with this guy. And as it turns out, because camping is always fun, his camp name is Donut. So it adds another layer of kind of humor and fun to the story that we're talking about Donut, who's left a gift in his will. So one of the things that Donut says in his article that we put in the newsletter is, someday in the future, some kid at camp is going to say, oh yeah, Donut was here. Donut made a difference. And he said, could I be better remembered for that? Like, could I be better remembered than Donut was here? So this newsletter goes out into the world, and the next morning we get an email from the client with a voicemail attached. So I'm going to play the voicemail, and you have to the first few seconds are confusing because she introduces herself and she's got kind of a longer name. So give it 5 seconds. You're not having a stroke. It does start to make sense after she kind of introduces herself. Okay, here we go.
Angie, it's Mariana Pangman speaking. I have just read the article that Alex sent, and it really is amazing. Donut, he was here, and that's how I want to be remembered forever. I know his real name is Norman Story, but anyway, I do appreciate all that you do, and my husband has dementia, so I don't participate very much, but what I do is amazing, and please don't forget to send me stuff, and thank you again. It means so much. Bye-bye.
So, that is clearly an older woman who's phoning a charity to thank them for asking her to give money in her will, and to reflect back to them that she feels valued because of these stories. And who would have expected that, the story of Donut was here would bring this woman to tell you so much about why this matters to her. And, Angie, the fundraiser, the people, you lovely person, have the opportunity to follow up with her and say, of course, we'll continue to share these stories. We're so sorry you can't make it to camp as much as you used to. Hey, look at this photo from a kid on the dock that we just happened to grab. Like, you're still part of our stories, every single day. And we see this all the time too with other organizations we work with. So you might, Camp for Kids with Cancer and Serious Illness is a kind of an easier thing to tell great emotional stories about, but they're everywhere with every charity, even just talking about this. So now we're into the kind of, how do you share stories, and how are you talking to people who are at this stage of their journey? They love you, they've given to you for ages, they're getting your materials, they're reading them enthusiastically, they're getting invited to your events. One of the things that Ontario Nature, who is another client we've been working with forever, has realized about events people is that, because Ontario Nature invites legacy donors and monthly donors and all donors and members actually out to different nature events. Hey, come and help us do a bio blitz and count the number of orchids in this bog. Hey, can you come and count the number of songbirds in this forest? And they're volunteer opportunities, but they're also amazing stewardship engagement opportunities. And Kirsten has realized that, people, the fundraiser there, realized that people will respond and tell her, oh, I can't come to that Trillium Walk sounds lovely, but, I can't make it out there anymore. My mobility is not great, but thanks for thinking of me. And, Kirsten, the fundraiser the next day can send a note. Oh, we missed you. Here's a couple of photos of the Trilliums. You're with us in spirit. Because these are people that are telling you that they do want to be part of the story. They still want to be kept involved. So whether you do that in a direct one-on-one way, or whether you do that in social media posts or in other kinds of other kinds of legacy seeds or legacy glitter. There's lots of ways to keep those stories in donors' minds, while they're, again, on their own journey with you as an organization. So then now, third stage, kind of third part of legacy giving is people who've already, yes, I've left you in my will. Let's start a loving 50-year relationship where you're going to tell me wonderful stories and treat me like gold. Because that's really what, people who've confirmed a gift in their will, the instinct for too many charities is to stop asking and to stop talking to them. And really, that's the beginning of a whole new journey in your storytelling with confirmed legacy donors. Because number one, you want to be able to ask them, will you share your story with others? Because that's a way that we find more people like you. And by you telling your story, you'll help us find more amazing legacy donors. But you can also, they'll give you more money. Like, to be perfectly blunt, people who've left you in their will give you more money in their lifetime as long as you acknowledge their legacy giving, ask thoughtfully, always leave it very open-ended and donor-directed, and always acknowledge their amazing contribution no matter what. So and then these ways of telling stories with existing legacy donors becomes another whole interesting challenge. One of the things that we've done, another client that we work with, another national nature organization, they have a very mature, established legacy program, been doing surveys for decades with them. So one of the things that they've done with their surveys now is that they've implemented a version of the survey that goes to people that they know have already left a gift in their will, but asks them different questions. So instead of asking questions about gifts and wills, we're asking questions that we know get at some of the concerns that legacy donors do have, like, can I designate my gift? Are there ways in which you can recognize my generosity now? So we kind of change the questions, and we also ask them to share things like, what are 3 words that describe you as a member? What are 3 words that describe how you feel about the state of nature in Canada? So that then we have information and knowledge to kind of, again, hold a mirror back up to them. Thanks for letting us know that species is your number one important concern. Here's exactly what we're doing on species and why your gift now and your gift forever will always make a difference. You can tell stories differently to this audience of people, but don't neglect them. Like, this group of donors will still give to you, and they have amazing stories that they can share and tell. So there really is stories at every stage of your legacy giving program. And you as a fundraiser finding out ways to share them, find them, and then share them with others is such an amazing, inspiring part of our days. And I'll just end with one last story, which is one that just happened last year with a client of ours, a nature organization again. And so they had this long-term donor. She'd been giving monthly for decades. She told the organization that she'd left a gift in their will. She's one of these people who had sort of petered out from the events. She wasn't able to attend them anymore, and they sort of noticed her absence. And then they got the notification that, in fact, Sheila had died. And so the fundraiser, opened up her email and sent a short note to the executor, who was her son, which said, we're sorry to hear about your mom's passing. She was a wonderful and generous supporter of Ontario Nature over many, many years. And in fact, I thought you might like to know that, I'm just going to read it out because what Kirsten dug up was back in 2010, we had sent a survey out to all of our members to ask them about a moment in nature that was special to them. And I wanted to tell you that this is what Sheila told us back in 2010 when we asked this question. She said, recently at a family lakeside cottage, while sitting by the dock, enjoying the peace and stillness, a loon appeared. He stayed around for about 15 minutes, diving, gliding gracefully back and forth across the water, an unexpected and precious surprise. Sheila was a wonderful supporter of Ontario Nature's conservation efforts, and she often sent us a message of encouragement like this. I thought you might enjoy reading this message from the past. Please accept our condolences for your loss. So Kirsten sends this note, the fundraiser sends this note off to this young man just to acknowledge Sheila's passing. And within a few minutes, she gets an email back from him that said, I cannot believe this is happening. I'm pinching myself, but I'm at the family cottage. I'm down by the dock, and there's a loon swimming by right now with a little baby on its back. And I'm pretty sure this is a message from my mom. And I just wanted to thank you for giving me this precious and unexpected surprise with my mother. So these are the kinds of stories and the kinds of moments that you don't realize you're signing up to be part of. But you are, because you taking this small action to reach out to this person and say, here's what your mom said in 2010, and I thought you'd like to spend this minute with her. This is a guy who's dealing with the funeral home and a caterer and family coming in from Long Island. And the charity gives him this moment to just savor with his mom. And that's the story of his life. And since then, he's now continued to nurture his relationship with this organization. He's now told them that he's left a gift in his will. And this beautiful generational relationship continues to flourish, all from a survey response in 2010 and a thoughtful storyteller in that position. So what else are we doing here,
Jesus. Exactly. Well, I didn't expect to come on. I always expected I'm gonna have to cry at some point or just get a little caught up emotionally in these things. But between donuts and loons, this is not what I expected. But this
I know.
is the when you're doing this work with vulnerability and emotions and empathy and curiosity, as we say every single day around here. This is beautiful stuff we get to do, and people who are watching this can have this too. It enriches us all in our lives so much. This goes beyond work. This is something different level. So, Jen, thank you. That was fantastic. I appreciate that so much. I hope anyone who's watching this, if you have any questions, you can always reach out to either of us and stuff. Do we have that story from Donut? Do we have that article? Can I share?
Yeah, definitely. Yeah.
I might put it in the email with this, but thank you everyone so much. And I'll just leave it there. Thanks, Jen.
See ya.